All right. So let's talk about the patterns of inheritance. Okay. So genetics is the study of the patterns of inheritance. Okay. So Gregor Mendel was one of the first person to study genetics in a systematic way. So what we're learning now is named after him. Okay. It's appropriately named Mendelian genetics. Okay. So he did this in an era where there was no microscopes. Okay, there was no biotech companies. There's none of that. Okay, he actually worked this stuff out in a monastery, which is crazy from my perspective. But he did it right. So okay. So you can see there are a bunch of girls here. Actually, there's some boys here too. I saw a bunch of girls for a second. Okay, so a bunch of children here. Okay, and you can tell some of the children are taller than others. That's the most obvious, right? And then you can tell some of these people are darker skinned than others. Okay, in fact, the ones on the left and the ones on the right, or the ones on the left are the lightest, the ones on the right are the darkest. But there is not one true shade. So it's not like the redhead is normal and everything else is abnormal. So everyone has these shades of color, and we struggle to understand where this came from and how this came from. Okay. So we learned the DNA carries genes, and we learned the sequence of nucleotides and code the protein. Right, that was the last chapter. Okay. We also learned chromosomes, right? So chromosomes are long strands of DNA wrapped around histones. Okay. Humans have 46 chromosomes in total. We have 23 from each parent. Okay. So the way we usually say it, we have 23 pairs of chromosomes. Okay. So chromosomes are paired into diploid cells, which we are. Okay. Diploid cells have two alleles for each gene. Okay. An allele is a version of a gene, so make sure you know what an allele is. Okay. Okay. Mutations create new genes. Okay. So every time there's a new mutation, there's a new allele, there's a new gene. Okay. Okay. So how are chromosomes, DNA, genes related to organisms' appearance? Okay. So what Gregor Mendel discovered the basic laws of inheritance. Okay. He used pea plants. Okay. One, he lived in a monastery, so he had access to the gardens. Two, the monastery he was a part of actively grew peas as part of their diet. Right. So peas are easy to control which plants mate with. So some plants is not that easy plants, but pea plants are actually really easy to control who they mate with. Okay, because you can cut off the male part, and you can use the cut off male part to dust the female part, and therefore you can decide which plant brings you what. Okay. So that's not about true breeding. Okay, so true breeding plants like these two here produce offspring that are identical to themselves. So if you take this green pea plant and you cross it to itself, you will produce offspring that only had green peas. Okay, you could take this one and you could bring them with another yellow flat, and no matter what, how you did it, your arrows end up with yellow. Okay, however, occasionally what you see is something called a hybrid plant. Hybrid plants outwardly resemble this yellow one, so you can't tell the difference between these two, but inside they produce mixed offspring. Okay, which is really weird. So we didn't really understand why that was. Okay, we didn't understand why two brown-eyed people would have a blue-eyed baby. Okay, and that threw everybody off. Okay. Okay, some alleles are dominant. Dominant alleles exert their effects whenever they're present. Okay, crossing a yellow seed plant with a green seed plant always yields a yellow seed. Okay, therefore, the yellow seed color is dominant over green seed color. Okay, dominant alleles, you only need one allele, one out of two. As long as you have that one, you have a dominant allele. And dominant allele will assert their effect whenever they're present. Okay. Other alleles are recessive. Recessive alleles, you need two copies to assert your presence. Okay. Recessive alleles often encode non-functional proteins. Okay. A recessive allele like green seed color is one whose effect is masked if a dominant allele is present. Okay, so the only way you get yellow, or sorry, the only way you get all green is if both alleles are green. Okay, so so why do some plants produce both green and yellow seeds like this one? And the answer is because of the chromosomes. Okay. Okay. All right. So here are some terms you have to know, right? Homozygous dominant, heterozygous, homozygous recessive. Okay. Homozygous dominant individuals have two dominant alleles for G. Okay. Heterozygous individuals, so homo, same. Okay. Homozygous is the alleles for the zygote. The two alleles for the zygote are exactly the same, and they're both dominant. Okay. Homozygous recessive, two alleles for the zygote, and they're both recessive. Heterozygous, okay, you have two alleles for the zygote, and those alleles are different from one another. Okay, so these are the three genotypes that you possibly have. There's only two phenotypes. Phenotype is what you look like. Okay, so you're either yellow or green. So you have one big Y, at least one big Y, you are yellow. If you have two little Y's, then you're green. Okay. Just as an aside, when I do these Punnett squares, I write them out, I never use the letter Y. I never use the letter X. Okay, I always use letters. Y is okay, but Y, I usually use letters that look different, capital and lowercase. Okay, and that's just so I don't confuse myself. Like I use big A, big B, little b. Like see the big A and little a look different, the big B and little b are different. The big C and little c, they look pretty much the same. So if I accidentally write a like size, I don't want to be size dependent, right? So I always want to choose things that are very different from uppercase and lowercase. Okay, So not C's, not S's, okay, and stuff like that. Not X, right? Because they all look the same size-wise, okay? All right. So the phenotype is a physical appearance. Okay. Okay. So a look at offering to determine the genotype of the parents. Okay. So how do genotypes lead to actual phenotypes? Well, the C co-color gene encodes a pigment metabolizing enzyme. Okay. The allele capital Y encodes an active enzyme which produces yellow pigment. Okay. If you do not have an active enzyme, then you can't produce this yellow pigment. So you end up green. Okay. So, okay. Due to mutation, the allele little y encodes an inactive enzyme and does not produce. So, or does not produce yellow. Okay. So the yellow, okay, if you have one copy, okay, of the yellow, then you produce yellow. If you have no copies of the yellow, then you produce green. Okay. Okay. One of the most major things you guys have to understand is how to draw a Punnett square. Okay. Okay. A Punnett square uses the genotypes of parents and reveals what alleles their offspring might inherit. Okay. So a parent always has two alleles, and a child will always get one out of the two. Okay. So from each parent. So the father will have two alleles and give one to the child. The mother will have two alleles and give one to the child. And generally, we consider this random. There are situations where it's not, but most of the cases, it's more or less random. Okay. So the mother, in this case, is heterozygote, so she will have a big Y. And actually, I'll use this as the father. I'll use the red one. Okay. So, okay, big Y, little Y. Okay. So the father, as is the case, wears big Y, little Y. The mother, in this case, has a big Y and a little Y. Okay. So I can give either one of these two things to my children. And what I want to show you is, well, we'll do a Punnett square. Okay. This person will receive a big Y, right? Big Y from mother, big Y from father. This person will receive a big Y from the mother, a little Y from the father. This person will receive a big Y from the mother and little Y from the father. And this person will receive two little Ys. Okay? Okay. So here is the Punnett square. Okay? These guys are going to be green. Okay? The rest of them, the other three, are going to be yellow. Okay? Now let's look, that's the phenotypes. Now let's look at the genotypes. Okay, the genotypes. I have these guys, then I have these guys. Okay, I have one, the one that's in red is homozygous dominant. The one that's in purple is homozygous recessive. And the two of them that are green are going to be heterozygous. Okay? Okay, so that makes sense. Okay. So hopefully that makes sense to you guys, right? This makes sense. So in this example, a female parent that's heterozygous is crossed to a male parent that's also heterozygous, and this is a monohybrid cross. Okay, monohybrid says both parents are homozygous, heterozygous. Okay, for the genes. Okay, and basically this is what we set out to show. Okay. Okay, so the Punnett squares, okay, show the possible combinations and expected proportions of the offspring. Obviously, if you do this like 10 times, you're not going to get exactly one, like this ratio of 1 to 1 or 3 to 1 or 1 to 2 to 1. Okay, but if you do this enough, the numbers will end up being very, very close to 3 to 1. Like Mendel did this about 1,000 times, and he got about 752 to like 248. Like they were really close to 3 to 1 ratios. And his math was actually really good enough for him to realize that was what he was seeing. Okay, what set Mendel apart was he actually had really good intuition for how math influenced genetics. Okay. All right, so the Punnett squares help us answer some of Mendel's questions. Okay, the test cross can reveal parental genotypes, heterozygous dominant. Okay, if you have a heterozygous dominant, then when you cross it with a heterozygous, sorry, let me start over. When you have a homozygous plant, you cross it with a homozygous recessive plant, you will get 100% homozygous looking plants. Okay, they will all be heterozygous, but they will look homozygous dominant, so they'll all be yellow. Okay, if on the other hand, okay, a cross between a yellow seed plant and green seed plant, use some yellow seed plants, then the yellow seed plant must be heterozygous. I'll show you that right here. Okay. If I have a big Y, little y, and I cross it to little y, so the little y is going to be the test cross. So we'll have big Y, little y, big Y, little y. These two will be yellow. These two will be green. Okay, these two are yellow. These two are green. Okay, so 1-to-1 ratio, okay, of yellow to green. Okay, all right. Mendel deduced the law of segregation. How Mendel's experiment showed two alleles of each gene segregate during gamete formation. Okay, so Mendel didn't know this, that's why he deduced it. Okay, so Mendel's experiment showed two alleles of each gene segregate during gamete formation. He had no idea this occurred in meiosis. He had no idea of meiosis at the time, but meiosis is what explains it. Okay, Mendel's work can be applied to many traits, not just P plats. Okay, like here for cystic fibrosis, we'll do a couple and lecture ourselves. Okay, so this one you should be able to figure out. Some questions like this will definitely show up on your exam. Okay. All right. So make sure you know how to do this as well, because things like this question will show up on your final exam as well. Okay. So make sure you know what a allele is: phenotype, dominant, recessive. Okay. Okay. Genes on different chromosomes are inherited independently from each other. Okay, and you can use dihybrid crosses to set up this cross. Okay. So how they set up this cross? Okay, is that this parent right here? Okay, this is apparently the egg. You can either, so you can only give one of these two alleles. You can either give a big R or a little r. You can either give a big Y or a little y. You cannot give two little, you can't give both Ys. You can't give both Rs. Okay, so you can either give the big Y, big R, little r, little r, big Y, or little r, little y. Okay, and the same is exactly true for the males. Okay, and then so you have 4 types of eggs, 4 types of sperm, so 16 different combinations. Okay, so 16 combinations will generate this phenotype ratio of 9:3:1 ratio. Okay, where you have 9 that are both the dominant alleles, so round and yellow, and then you have 3 that are dominant for one trait, so round, and recessive for other trait, green, or recessive for one trait, wrinkled, and dominant for the other trait, yellow. You have one last one that is called the double recessive. The double recessive is both wrinkled and green. Okay, so they're both recessive alleles. Okay, this is known as independent assortment. Okay, and this is explained by meiosis as well. Okay. Okay. Why is it possible for one parent of the gametes to have genotype RR? Because you only have one allele from each parent. Okay, the product rule, go into that. Okay, so make sure you understand that. Okay, I will stop this recording right here and we'll pick up with part 2 later on.